When Miami Vice first hit screens in 1984, it's fair to say that it was something of a revolution for television at the time. The show leaned heavily on everything that was considered cool in popular culture at the time, from utilising the latest chart toppers in the show's soundtrack, to the outfits that the show's stars were wearing, and of course, the action and the guest stars who would go on to be superstars in Hollywood. This was the show that reinvented what television could be, essentially trying to make a film on a TV show budget. And the result was a smash hit. The show firmly had its finger on the pulse of what it meant to be cool in the 80s. And no small part of the show's appeal was down to the lead actors Don Johnson and Philip Michael Thomas as Crockett and Tubbs. But despite running for 5 successful years and the huge legacy that this show has had on popular culture since, there has been surprisingly very little merchandising around this property, and most notably, in the action figure department. That was until a few years ago when Mezco acquired the license and made 2 action figures based on Crockett and Tubbs as they appeared in the TV show. And today I'm going to be taking a closer look at both of them. Now I should point out that I have obviously the blue Tubbs and the cyan kind of colour suit for Crockett. However, whilst Mezco didn't make more figures in this line, they did do a ton of variants of each of these characters. So obviously we can see here that they did a white suit and a cyan suit for Crockett, and we can see that they did 3 variants of Tubbs. They've got the cyan suit, which is the one I went for, the most colourful, but they also did a dark grey with white pants and a one-tone lighter grey. Okay, so starting with the Crockett. I think the first thing we'll notice about these figures is that there's a slightly exaggerated quality to them. So they're not a caricature by any stretch of the imagination, but they're quite chunky figures. They're quite solid. They feel very heavy, which is very nice. But there's something a little bit not in proportion, a little bit exaggerated, I think, but without feeling cartoonish. Now the likeness here is a interesting one. From certain angles, it looks really quite off. There's a certain redness around the eyes, which suggests that Crockett's been on an all-night bender. And from certain angles, I would say this is a really bad likeness, but from others, it's actually really good. So it's quite an odd thing, depending on the lighting and what way you're looking at the figure. I think it does vary. As we can see here, I think this is a fair approximation of Don Johnson. I think they've clearly gone for this slightly 5 o'clock shadow, and they try to create that kind of look. And I think there's no mistaking that this is Don Johnson. But like I said, it really does come down to how you're looking at the figure. Now the articulation is a bit of a mixed bag here. In terms of the head, it does have a ball-jointed head joint there, so this is fantastic. Look at the range of motion you get out of this. Yes, it can look up and down a really good distance. It can spin around 360 degrees. Brilliant, absolutely wonderful stuff. Now he has the same shoulders that Mezco used for the Reservoir Dogs figures, and I quite like this shoulder joint here, because what it allows you to do is push back quite a good distance, and I don't think it hurts too much with this figure, given that it has shoulder pads anyway, so I actually think it probably enhances the figure. It doesn't seem that noticeable, so it does provide a lot more motion in that shoulder there, which I think is really good. Now he also has the bicep swivel as well, and of course you'll notice he's got the single jointed elbow. Again, this seems really, really good to me. This seems perfectly adequate. He does have wrist articulation at the sleeve, and this can spin around 360 degrees. There is no articulation in the wrist, but again, this is an artistic choice, and it's hidden really quite well by that sleeve. Sadly, there is no ab crunch, but he does swivel at the waist, which is nice, and I actually didn't think it would, to be honest, given the very hard plastic of the jacket. Sadly, he does only have a swivel at the upper thigh on each leg, so it does tend to arch out into a V shape when you kick his legs forward, which is not great, but there is some good movement backwards and forwards. He does have thigh articulation, which is great, and he has the single jointed knees as well. And obviously this is a very chunky, solid figure, so it can be a little bit stiff. And he also seems to have a ball jointed foot as well, so you can actually get a good range of motion out of it, surprisingly. Oddly, it won't kick forwards or back, but it will move from side to side. Pleasingly, Crockett also comes with a ton of accessories, including his police badge, his shades, a packet of cigarettes, his gun, his snub nose, and most surprisingly of all, Elvis, his pet alligator. And there's definitely enough here to allow you to mix and match and create a variety of different looks for this character. And whilst I think the hands are slightly too large, and possibly the feet as well, there's definitely something very fun about it, and I think, very presentable. This looks great on display. I'm very, very fond of it. Moving on to Tubbs. Yes, he's tough, unique, bold, bodacious, and sassy. unsurprisingly, just like the Crockett, this is a nice looking figure. Very well made, very chunky, very heavy. There is a slightly exaggerated quality to it, but I think the paint apps are nice and it definitely looks really presentable. So how does he fare in terms of the likeness? Well, I actually think this is a very solid likeness. I actually think this one's probably slightly sharper than the Don Johnson, so I definitely feel like they've definitely caught Philip Michael Thomas' likenesses quite nicely here. Again, he does seem to be suffering from the red eyes again, which is a shame, and there's something a bit funky going on with that top lip as well, where there's obviously extra lining going on. But that said, I'm very happy with this likeness. I think this is pretty solid, really. I think this definitely captures Tubbs' look in the show. The articulation is almost identical to what we saw with the Crockett. Obviously, he does have that wonderful ball-jointed head there, so as you can see, it spins right round and it looks up and down, and yeah, absolutely fantastic range of motion here. His arms, again, he has that shoulder joint there, so they push right the way back, which is great, and they come a little bit forward, but again, great sweeping range of motion, that bicep swivel, and of course, the single-jointed elbow as well. Now, he obviously doesn't have the sleeve articulation, but he does have wrist articulation here, so that's really nice. Again, well hidden and well done. He does have the swivel at the waist, and you can get some movements out of it, but to be honest, the hard plastic of the blazer doesn't allow a lot of give. Sadly, things get worse for the legs, as there is no way that that upper thigh joint can swivel out. He does, of course, have the single-jointed knees, though, and as you can see, mine is quite stiff. I don't mind this. It is a very solid piece. It doesn't feel like it's ever going to snap or break, which is great. And he does have a lot more give in the foot articulation there as well, which is really good. Just like Crockett, Tubbs comes with a ton of goodies. He has his police badge, his shades, a briefcase that actually opens, a snub nose, an Uzi, and of course, the sawn-off shotgun. Inside the briefcase there is a wad of cash and some substance in a blue packet, whilst the sawn-off shotgun actually splits in half. So you can actually cock it and see the chamber in there. I love this. I think this is a really cool extra touch, and when you mix and match these different accessories you get a variety of different looks, and I love this versatility, and I think overall both these figures are just really cool. And I think the real power of these figures is when you put them together, because as much as I love them individually, I think it's only when you put them together you get the real potential unleashed for these guys, because I think they look fantastic together, and they're definitely, you know, they feel like they're part of a pair. Also, they're in a strange scale. You know, there aren't many figures made in this sort of scale. They're about 8 inches, but they're made as if they're a plastic sort of 6-inch or 7-inch kind of scale figure. So they don't kind of fit in with you know, most of our collections, I would say, but you know, they are great, and you're going to want to keep them together so they feel like a proper display piece. They definitely feel kind of unique, but ultimately, yeah, very cool, just as they should be. There's definitely some oddities to them. They're slightly exaggerated, the hands are maybe too big, but overall, I love these things, and they feel special just because there isn't that much out there for Miami Vice, and I think what we've got is really nice figures here. I hope you enjoyed the vid. If you did, please do give it a like. And remember to subscribe, as I will be posting more videos soon.